Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whichever it is, I am so happy to be here with you, all my listeners. I have a wonderful surprise for you all today. I have Selina Maitreya. She is the author of Raise Your Frequency and Transform Your Life. This wonderful, magnificent, awesome book that she wrote. And she has given me an opportunity to pick her brain, and I'm just loving that. Hello, Selena.
Well, hello, my queen. How are
Oh,
you?
I am just flying in the sky, up with the clouds, that I am connecting with you. This is an unbelievable opportunity for me. After only listening to you a few months ago on the radio, and now I'm talking face to face, at least Zoom face to face with you in person. Tell me about you. Tell me about how got in a situation where you were able to write a book so awesome, so magnificent, so needed in today's world.
Well, thank you. And first, I want to say it's a pleasure for me to be here with you because when we connected, it was so clear to me what a high vibrational person you were and how much service you do just by walking our planet, my queen. So I have been looking forward to this. I'm sorry we were unable to get together in person, but the meeting in San Diego will be in March, and I'll keep you posted. But I just wanted to say thank you because this is an honor for me to share the information we're going to be discussing with you as well as with your community. So thank you so much for all the work you do and for who you are, who you are.
Oh,
Yes, thank you.
well, Selena, I want you to have most of this time because with your experience and with your patience and know how to communicate this message to the planet, I am learning from you certain terms and certain practices that we could use that would elevate our frequency, that will elevate our vibration. And that is needed on this planet at this time because it is so much confusion and it is so much fear and so much anger going on in the world today. We have to be among the high vibrational people. So let's just start maybe with the breath. How, when, and which I need to do right now is slow my breathing down because I am so excited. But tell me about how important the breath is and to slow it down and what opportunities it can cause in your life when you just do that simple thing.
Yeah, well, you really hit on something here because Spirit had shared with me a very long time ago that the breath is the physical manifestation of our soul.
Yes.
So when we actually sit and take that in, we're used to our breath just keeping our body going. We know that when we stop breathing, we're done.
Yes.
And that our breath is important. And most of us just think of it as that physical component that keeps us moving forward. But the breath being the physical manifestation of the soul, and Spirit said, when you were infants and you were actually born out of your mother's body and onto the planet, into the physical world, your breath came in at that time. And your breath, being the physical manifestation of the soul, was needed to activate your life. And it is indeed one of the last pieces of our physicality that leaves before the body is there and our spirit has moved on.
Right.
So they shared that this isn't just a physical function that's needed. It is your soul coming into the world. Each time you breathe, you are breathing out your soul energy into the world. So it's a very, very powerful tool because most of us go through our day not thinking of our breath. We just take it for granted.
Yes.
And if you talk with trauma specialists, they will tell you, traditional as well as Eastern, that when the body experiences a trauma, the breath is impacted as well. And I have so many students that when they start with me, their breath is very fast and very shallow. And that isn't just from experiences they've had in the world. It's because they're racing. It's because the physical world is so full of so many activities, and we're conditioned by our society and cultures, our parents, to move very quickly. There's picture upon picture TV. There's drive-through restaurants. People in their cars or on their phone. So people are constantly multitasking. And while they multitask, they often forget to breathe.
Yes.
So their breath becomes shallow, right? And it becomes very fast. When that happens, that's a real symptom of how we're moving through the world. How thoughts are coming in and out of our body, how our emotions are racing through our systems. And on top of kind of taking the breath for granted and not knowing perhaps before this podcast that the breath is actually the physical manifestation of the soul, most people don't realize that the breath is an incredible calming mechanism.
Yes.
So the breath of life practice that Spirit has passed on, that's in the book, Raise Your Frequency, Transform Your Life, is a wonderful practice that can be enacted anywhere you are and only needs a couple of moments, literally minutes of your time for you to experience it so that you can calm your state and bring yourself back to neutrality. Not just when something difficult has happened, but anytime you're excited and you just need to center, or anytime something has happened, somebody cuts you off, you're driving in the car and you're having a wonderful day and somebody cuts you off and suddenly it's not such a wonderful day. You can bring in the breath and bring in the breath of life practice, which is nothing more and everything, including putting your attention on your breath as you close your eyes and breathe deeply in and out of your nose with your mouth sealed. So that practice becomes an incredible tool that will help you to come down to neutrality in any situation. And what I love, Queen, about the breath is that it costs us nothing but our willingness to engage, to take ourselves out of the third dimensional world and stop for 5 minutes or less. And it costs nothing, and it's always available.
Always.
So there you go, a whole big long explanation.
That's okay. I'm sure listeners are enjoying it and hoping, understanding it, and even better, maybe they will use that and focus and realize that the breath is the most important physical part of our lives. It's the first physical part that we have when we come out of our mother's womb, as you say, and it's the last thing we take when we're leaving the planet. And I've noticed myself when I get excited or when I get upset or angry, my breathing is shallow. And if I just slow it down, it seems like the world becomes more fluid, that it's not as dense as it is when my breath is shallow. And I know that when you want to manifest your dreams, when you are meditating and concentrating on your dreams and your aspirations, that when you breathe slowly, that they're more than likely to manifest much faster. And I just think that is so wonderful, just to know that it doesn't cost us anything. So we need to do this, and I'm going to throw a wrench in our conversation because after this election, I know there's a lot of people that need to breathe slower because it's a lot of fear going on the planet right now. Do you agree with that?
Well, there very definitely is a lot of fear. And it's such an interesting thing because fear really comes from the egoic body, which is an energy field, a low frequency energy field in the totality of our life stream. I would call, excuse me, who we are, a life stream. And that life stream has many different components. We're the physical body with a physical brain. We have a history of pain, which is the low frequency egoic field, and a high frequency field of oneness. That is what the breath is a representation of. We also have an emotional body. We have an intellectual body. And so all of these different components are at work. And when we're in fear, we're engaging the egoic body. And Spirit has said to me that really the only purpose of the egoic body when we were created was meant to be for fight or flight. Like you step off a sidewalk in a busy street and you haven't looked left or right, and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't look. That's where fear is helpful. But outside of that, it's not helpful. But we've been once again conditioned by society and our families and our religions. Oh boy, big time our religions.
Yes.
To fear, right? To bring fear in all the time. I would agree with you that at this moment in time, especially here in the United States, I have students all over the world, and I'm hearing this is a global issue. But very definitely centralized here in the United States. We had an election where, according to the source, it was a very clear distinction between the energies of light and the energies of dark. And the energy that I channel is the oneness, the energy that created all. And they don't have difficulty being clear with us when we're in difficulty. And where they see the dark when we're not acting or being, our actions don't represent being of the light, of centered and connected to love. And they have no problem pointing that out on a more global level. So in this election, the majority of people in the United States voted for Donald Trump, who, according to source, and in my estimation, very clearly, through his actions and his words. This is not an opinion, it's an observation.
Right.
In the world of source where I travel, Queen, an observation is looking at the actions that you see without an opinion, right?
Yes.
Without an opinion.
Right.
Judgment is the opinion that we put on the observation we hold.
Oh, yes.
Right. So source observes. And source observed the actions, and source observed the energy that each of the candidates were creating. And that's where they define the difference. And they say that we were at an inflection point, a point of really making a choice that was going to matter a great deal at this point in the country and on the planet. And what they said was clearly, from the results of the election, clearly the collective chose to stay in pain and chose to create even more pain because they were swayed by the fear that was being produced and shared, and they chose fear.
Fear, yeah. Fear creates the darkness.
Well, the fear is the darkness, for sure. I mean, there is no light in fear. At the same time, I think it's very, very important to talk about this in a little bit of a broader picture as we begin here. There's there was a wonderful Kabbalistic rabbi, Queen, who used to travel around as he shared Kabbalistic thoughts. And Kabbalah, for those who are unfamiliar, who may be listening, is the mystical end of the Hebrew religion.
Okay.
The way Islam has mystical ends and the traditional, so does the Jewish religion. So Kabbalah is a way of life, and it's shared through stories and meditations and teachings.
Yes.
And he used to go around and teach, and the first thing he would do is go up to a blackboard with a piece of chalk and ask somebody to come up and draw a yin without a yang.
Okay.
And clearly the teaching is that you can't draw one without the other. Because when you do the S and shade one side in to create the yin, the yang is automatically created.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So we know.
That's like male and female also, yes.
Exactly, right. So we all have male energy and we all have female energy, right? To your point. So the idea is that dark while we certainly don't want dark to be the overwhelming quality in how we live or what we choose or what we experience, it's a part of this third dimensional reality. It's
Yes.
not as if we never want to get rid of our ego, because the ego is needed for the fight flight.
To
But what
drive
we
us
want to,
on. To drive
right,
us
but what,
on. Yes.
well, to drive us on, but more to protect us, more
Okay.
for the fight flight aspect of, you don't want to put your hand on a stove, you don't want to step off the curb without looking left or right. It keeps us safe.
Safe.
Let's look at it
All
as a
right.
safety mechanism, right?
Okay. Yes.
But once again, we've been conditioned to bring the ego in all over. So the dark is needed to balance out the light, even down to the physics of how our planet is kept in its orbit in the sky. It's paradoxical forces that science tells us that keeps the planet
Planet
in space. So that dark is always going to be
be
a part
there.
of
Right.
our personal experience and our global experience. The question we have is, how much dark do we choose to have in our life? So we go for the light knowing that the dark is always going to be there, because there's darkness in each of us. There are male and female energy within each of us. And so our job, if you will, our responsibility as conscious people is to say, where is my light? Where is the darkness within me? Where does the darkness serve? Where it does it not? And how do I move forward in the light? So when we bring this to the election, we had a very clear choice. Do we move forward with a woman who says, come to my table, I am here to serve all. I am here to be a bridge to all? Or do we go with a candidate who says, let's build walls? This person is garbage. This group of people are garbage. Let's put this person in front of a firing squad. Lots and lots and lots of dark. So where do we go? Now, I'm taking qualities, very exaggerated qualities, and I want to own that. I'm taking very exaggerated qualities of both and putting them forward. There were a lot of policies that people who voted for Trump, who I've talked to since, have cited to me that had nothing to do with those, that they were willing to excuse because they had other agendas,
Yes.
things that were important to them that they did not feel Kamala would serve. So I am certainly not saying that everybody who voted for Donald Trump, I just want to be so clear about this, are unconscious or of people of the dark. I'm talking about the candidates themselves and what source felt on a vibrational level they represented from an energetic perspective. So enough people in this country chose Donald Trump. And for a lot of people who voted for Kamala, especially the people I've talked to who are spiritual leaders, who are teachers, who are like yourself, people who are teachers and interested in helping us move forward, are in a lot of fear. And that doesn't serve them, and that doesn't serve any of us. So it's important at this point that those of us that are of the light and do know how important that is, step up to the plate and look at the fear within us and not stuff it or ignore it, but learn how to energetically transform it
Right.
so it can be of light and they can lead in an integral and helpful way. That's what we need now. We all need to be of
Yes.
light, regardless of whether you're a teacher or a student or, whatever you do, there's a place in your life that you can serve from that higher octave.
That's right.
So that would be my take on it.
Yes, I totally believe that. And I also believe that when you have a challenge, like you say, you have to step up to the plate. But at the same time, you can access energies that you never had before. It's like you elevate yourself to be more positive, to be more of the light, knowing that you have to get rid of and dissipate the darkness. And that means negativity. But as you say, it begins with us, with one person. But I'd like to get back to something. When you say source, will you describe what you mean? When
Yeah,
you say
sure.
source?
For me, source, oneness, God,
Yes,
Yahweh,
yes, yes.
Krishna, all the same, the
Yes.
energy of creation that created us all.
Right. I want people to understand that,
Yeah.
because some people get offended when we take a metaphysical view on a God, the universe, Allah, Jehovah, Buddha. They're all the same, just different words, different languages, but they all are saying the same thing, our Creator. So I just wanted to clear that up for a lot of people that don't understand that.
And for me, that energy of the divine is within each one of
Divine.
us.
Yes,
For me,
yes.
I'm not separate from God.
Amen.
The energy that speaks through me when I teach and is speaking through me now here,
Mm-hmm.
is no different than the energy that is around us that
Around us, that
created. And so
created us. Yes.
yeah, the only difference for me within me is that I've chosen years ago to cultivate my relationship with Source
Mm-hmm.
in order to be a vessel, to be
A
able to
vessel.
communicate their messages. And I live my life as integrally as I can in order
Yes.
to continue to be an appropriate vessel
An
for that
example.
message.
You teach by example, right? Yes.
Well, I don't know how we can teach otherwise, and I would totally agree. And but there's also a conduct outside of just my, when I'm teaching, my life in general. I've taken a commitment to radical honesty. I'm
Mm.
constantly observing me as I walk through the world. People ask all the time. They say, "Well, you have a very high frequency, and you're on the path to enlightenment, and do you ever get frustrated? Do you ever get angry?" And of
Of
course I do.
course.
The difference for me, though, is that I see it, and I have tools that I've used for years that are in the book, Raise Your Frequency,
Right. Oh,
Transform
I
Your
love
Life.
this book.
And so, thank you. And so I use them all the time. I mean, I am 24/7. As soon as I see a piece of irritation within me, because I'm in constant awareness, as soon as I see it, I transform it. As soon as I see it, I transform it. So I am constantly, I would think, almost as much as I breathe, I'm transforming if there's difficulty in my field. So that's where we all have the possibility to be headed.
Right. That word transform, you use it quite often in the book.
Hmm.
And by the way, I want the listeners to know there's also an audio book that goes with the written book. And that is so helpful because you can listen and then you can outline in the book as you listen. And I listen to it over and over and over again. But
Yeah,
Celine,
well, I just want to be clear. The audiobook is a separate purchase, so it doesn't come with the
oh
book,
yeah, I know.
but right,
Yeah,
yeah, but just it's an option for people. You can
right.
have
I
that. Yeah, and
think both.
it's not my voice on the audiobook, it's another person. There was unfortunately, I would have loved to have recorded that. I absolutely
It
would
would
have
have
loved
been
to.
great.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, there was a miscommunication between my publisher and their audio department, and it was
Oh,
recorded before I was even told.
oh
So,
my goodness.
they're a fabulous publisher, so things happen. However, the woman's voice is
It
beautiful and
is.
lovely,
It
and
is.
I've gotten lots of compliments on that. So, yeah, but it's a separate format. That's a good word, format.
I'm sure she transformed her life when she read that book. I am sure that was a wonderful job. Had you ever talked with her? Did you ever meet her?
That's an interesting question. I love that question. No, I don't know her, and I did not. But, energy is so transferable. I can't imagine unless it was just a job to her. But I don't know. Even if it was, my experience with energy is that a person who would be working with my publisher to begin with, because
Had
Inner
to be.
Traditions Queen is a company, they have their 50th
Oh
anniversary
my
this year.
goodness.
And
50
they have
years?
I think it's over 20,000 titles. They've been around they are the most established spiritual book
Spiritual book.
publisher,
Uh-huh.
and they've been around forever. So anyone who's interested in working with them is probably somebody, because all their books are deeply, deeply spiritual across the entire spectrum. I mean, their catalog is like such eye candy for any spiritual person. And so I can't imagine anybody who would have wanted to work with them wouldn't already be in that high vibration. And you can't be reading this material over and over for the entire book without having the energy affect you in some
Right,
regards.
elevate
How,
you
yes. However, the true elevation comes not from the
with the
reading of this book,
practice.
right, but it's a workbook. It's really meant,
Yes,
you can read it or you can use it, you can read it straight through and get a lot of wisdom and underline things. You can use it as an oracle where you say, I want a message that's important to me today, and just open it up and see where it lands. It can
yes.
be used that way, but its most effective use is as a workbook where you literally go through chapter by chapter. I have a work study group. This is my fourth one. I just started around the book. And we just started it. I have people from Europe. I have people from the Middle East. I have people from, not the Middle East, they dropped out, but we have Belgium and 2 people from England and a lot of people from around the country. And we meet every month, and I teach on a chapter. We start with chapter 1, obviously. Then my students go off during the month and they do the work, and they come back and we talk about it, and they share what they've discovered, what they've learned, what they've done, and then I give a teaching on the next chapter, and we keep going forward. And we do that for 10 months. I started this group years before the book came out, once I had finished writing. And so now I'm on my 4th group, and my next one will start in July. And it's fabulous to
I
see
can
the change.
imagine. I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
put my name on the list.
Well, yeah, well, hop onto my website, because if you go over to the book on my website, practicalspiritualitywithselina.com, and you go to the section on the book,
All
there's
right.
a place to sign up for July's. I think my assistant is putting that up as of next week, if it's not up already. But you can sign up on a waiting list. A lot of the people that are on in this particular group have been on that list since the book got published.
I can
So
believe it.
before the book got published, yeah. So it was great. Yeah.
I can believe it. Well, I'm excited about that. But let's see. Selina, what led you to write this book? What happened in your life to make you write this particular book?
Well, that is a very big question, and I'm going to try to be as concise for you as I can. I didn't decide to write a book. I have written 2 other books. Before I became a teacher full time, I was a consultant to commercial photographers around the world. I was a visual and marketing consultant. And in that capacity, I wrote 2 books that have been published, one by Random House and one by Skyhorse Publishing. And I've always been a deep spiritual student. My name, Selina Maitreya, was given to me when I was 16 years old, and I met my first spiritual teacher. So my journey with
Wait, before
spirituality.
stay where you are, but tell us what your name means. I know, but I want them to know what your
Thank
name
you.
means.
Thank you. So when I was 16, and my first spiritual teacher gave me my name, she said, "Your name is Selina." And Selina means daughter of the moon and mistress of the stars.
Stars.
Which, I mean, come on, Queen. What 16-year-old girl doesn't think that's the most amazingly
Fabulous.
beautiful thing they've ever heard, right? And I happened to be a very unhappy 16-year-old. My
Okay.
family was a wreck. I did not feel safe in certain places in my family. And I was very, very unhappy. My parents were very good people, very, very good people, but they'd long been divorced, and it just wasn't a happy home. And so when this name was given to me, I was kind of ready to take it on. Now, Maitreya is the name of a master. Master Maitreya is a disembodied master whose philosophy is quite simple, where 1 and 1 is not 2, 1 and 1 is 3. And our purpose here is not to compete with each other, which is what we're trained to do. Our purpose is to be of service to one another. And I just took to that. That just meant the world to me. But at that point, I wasn't ready to take on the name Maitreya. So I didn't until a very incredible thing happened. So I met Kumi Maitreya and Venetia when I was 16. And when I was 30, well, I must have been in my late 30s, I guess, when I met my current teacher, who I've been with for 20 some odd years. And on our second visit, my teacher, Hope, the Reverend Janice Hope Gorman of the Hope Interfaith Center, in Mankato, Minnesota, Hope mentioned Maitreya. And I thought, oh my gosh. Well, this symbol that I wear was given to me by my teacher when I was 16. The sapphire was not quite in it, but this is an acronym, a visual acronym for oneness. The expression of Maitreya's 1 and 1 is 3. We're here to help each other because we live in oneness. And my teacher mentioned Maitreya, and I hadn't heard that in 16 or 17 years. So I knew at that point, because my husband and I were divorcing, and he had just the week before, excuse me, he had just the week before said that when we did get divorced, I needed to lose my last name, which was a bit upsetting because I loved my in-laws. I loved my kids who had the name, and I already had a book published under Oppenheim, which was my name. But as soon as my teacher mentioned Maitreya, I knew it was my time to take on the name Maitreya. So when I got divorced, I took the sapphire from my engagement ring and I put it in this beautiful symbol I've been wearing for so many years that I wear every day. And I legally changed my name to Selina Maitreya. I'd been Selina, so I became Selina Maitreya. So Selina Maitreya moved on to answer your question about the book.
Okay.
And I ended up taking full responsibility, 95% financial responsibility for my kids. My career was going very well, and my husband's was not. And I worked very hard for 15 years. I had 2 boys. I did 150 lectures all over the United States and into North and South America over the next 15 years to promote the books I had, to build my business, to keep my kids in their home, to put them through college. Wonderful. And the idea was that when my kids were old enough and they had done college, I would sell our house that I had bought from my husband so I could keep them in their home. And I would move on and have a partner and be able to teach full time. I'd give up my consulting business because I loved my spirituality. But clearly I needed that time for my own growth, to grow into the work, to use the work, to shift myself in order to be teacher.
Right.
So that was what I went through.
Yes.
And to be all of who I am and to be in a place of alignment, because I had a real edge. You know, I was type A, and there's a part of me, because we talked about the dark in all of us, and I'm uber transparent. There's a part of me that gets irritated if people get too close, if I'm in too big a crowd, if I'm hungry, if I'm tired. I can get irritated, and that's when my darker side would come out. So I had to shift a lot within me. I had a lot of pain as a child, and I discovered things I didn't know. So that time came about, and what I learned from Hope was how to embody spiritual practices. That's what the book is about. The book teaches us how to be in our daily life, in our values. How, we're used to reading about them or going to workshops, but the book teaches us how to be kind, how to be loving when we don't feel loving.
Right.
Right?
To be a
So I had to
spiritual
learn
being,
all of that.
a spiritual being in a physical body.
Right. And that's not something we're taught by society. So I worked with my teacher for years. The 15 years I had the house and my kids were growing up, I was working on me. And the idea was that when I sold the house, I'd move and I'd be a teacher. So that time actually came. 2013 came. My older boy was already in grad school. He's now a psychologist in a middle school, which is fabulous. Yeah, it is. Our boys really need.
Yes.
They need to be understood. And my son Jake is so lovely and compassionate. And then Sam was in undergrad. And most importantly, both of them had found the women that they're now married to, and they were living with them. So I was in a bigger house by myself, and it was time to end that chapter of my life. And I decided I wanted to move to New York. I'm from New York, and I had left at 16. But I wanted to move to the city. I wanted to live in New York City again. And I lived there briefly as a teenager.
A little faster pace, huh?
Well, I wanted that, yeah. I wanted to. I love New York City. I really thought I wanted to live there. I lived there and learned I didn't want to live there, but I did. So I went to New York, and everything was in place. My house sold in a day. I had great plans for the first, in July, for the first time in 8 years, I was going to get in my car and drive to see friends and take a real decent vacation. I hadn't had a good vacation in many, many years because I'd worked so hard to keep my kids in their house. So I was headed over to clean my house for the last time before our closing. And then I was going on vacation. And then I was going to go to New York and show up with a pocket full of money and get an apartment somewhere. But what happened was that on the way over to clean my house for the last time, a woman ran a red light on this gorgeous, gorgeous summer day and hit my car. And it was a very bad hit. I had an Audi convertible. It was a very small car. And she had a very big van. And she was going 70 miles an hour. And she ran a red light right into the door of my car. So I was left with a traumatic brain injury, and that shifted everything. So I'm going to be quiet for a bit because I've been talking a lot.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I want people to know you because I want people to buy this book because it seems like that accident was a blessing in disguise because you were able to transform your word, to transform your life into a more spiritual life, into a more person that could give brighter light to the planet. And besides that, you are able to translate that to a workable workbook where other people could learn from that experience that you had. And I just totally believe that you are glittering up in the stars already because I think that once our soul evolves enough with enough light that we become stars in the universe, that our souls just brighten up certain areas. And I believe that that happens to our soul, our spiritual being. Go.
Well, I love that, and I would hope that that's true, because that's such a beautiful vision. I'm going to hold that vision with you. I love that.
Yes.
It was an interesting experience. So in the car, I've been a channel. In the car, the woman hits my car. I didn't even see her coming. And then the car I went from 1 minute being in an incredibly good mood because it was a gorgeous summer day. It was in July in 2013, July 15th. And everything had gone so well with my house. I was just feeling so lit up. And I'm in the car 1 minute feeling that way. And then the next minute I hear a train noise off my shoulder, like a very kind of low rumbling. Mm-hmm. And I went to look, and all that happened was the car filled with tremendous light. And I thought I was dying. And I don't really talk about what happened beyond that, except to say that it was the most incredible experience because, quite frankly, there are no words to describe what I experienced. Yes. But I know enough to know now that I was taken to oneness. Yes. And Spirit told me that they had created this, and they asked me to refer to it as an event. That this wasn't an accident. It was not an accident, that they created this event. And they specifically created it as a response to my wish for all the years I had wished to be a teacher and waited. And they told me that they were taking me out of my life, that I wouldn't have a broken bone or a cut, but that they were taking me out of my life for quite some time. And they were restructuring my energetic fields. And that they had my back, and my job was to surrender, and that they would take care of everything, but that I would be in a very different state when I got out of the car, and nothing would ever be the same. So at that time, obviously, I couldn't really register anything because I just knew what had been said, but it really didn't occur to me till later. So, jaws of life, because my door was so wedged into my side that they needed the jaws of life to get me out. And when I went to the hospital, I was there for 5 hours without a broken bone or a cut. Wow. Nothing. I looked normal. The car was bashed in on one side, but if you didn't look at that side, the car was normal, although it was totaled. Everybody thought it was a miracle. And
it was a miracle.
It was. The whole thing was a miracle. A miracle. Right? But 3 days later, I couldn't walk down a hallway. And I had already had a neurologist, and she she saw me and said, you know what, with brain injuries, she said, you got really whacked. And with brain injuries, we know nothing. You know, in a year, if you're not better, she said, it's probably a couple of weeks, couple of months maybe, but should it go a year, which I don't think, she said, we call where you are at that time where you're going to be. So for me, I was directed by source to still move forward with my plans. I went to a friend took care of me for a couple of weeks while I waited to hear about apartments, and my guidance from then on in. Here's the important part. From that moment in the car till now, until I leave the planet, I no longer make decisions. I am completely guided by source, which in my experience means that I have a continual conversation with the divine. And when they give me marching orders, I consider them and I engage my brain then to figure out the steps in the third dimensional world that need to happen. For instance, I was moved 8 times in the next 10 years. 12 years, yeah, next 11 years. So they moved me to New York City, to an apartment there. And then I was moved uptown, then I was moved off the island to Woodstock, New York, and then my teacher invited me into her center for 6 months. So I kept getting moved. In the very beginning of my time, I just want to share that my brain injury was so bad that taking a shower was a big deal. That for the first year, it was impossible. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't take mass transportation. The noise, the light, the energy. I was so overwhelmed. And when you have a brain injury, Queen, your entire being slows down and shuts down in places. You have absolutely less than no energy.
Yes.
So everything is an effort because the brain controls all the functions. But the gorgeous piece of this, the absolutely stunningly gorgeous piece of losing the health of your brain is, for me at least, I had an entree to oneness. That was the experience I had in the car when I was completely unconscious. So I had the opportunity at any time, and still do, to close my eyes and enter the field with absolutely no effort whatsoever.
Yes.
So that's where I spent the majority of my time for the first year. And in year 2, the first 5 years, I was pretty much in that state. I had no focus for the first year. Year 2, I started to be able to focus for about an hour at a time, which meant that here I was in New York City in an apartment that cost $3,500 a month. Thank you very much. And where I would have been able to handle that before, I had no idea when I'd ever work again. I was able to do small pieces of work, very small pieces of work, but the first 5 years, very little. So I ended up going through the small savings I had at that point and having to claim bankruptcy, which was an interesting experience in and of itself. But bringing us back to the book, it was in the second year that Spirit came through and said that I was to write a book. And I just laughed.
Really?
I knew what writing a book took. And I was in no shape to write a book, my dear. I was in no shape. So I laughed and I said, listen, that's fabulous, but you know my condition and no way I can write. And they said, that's right. So you're going to record for the next 5 years. And so for 5 years, I channeled. This is a channeled book. I didn't sit down and decide to put all my information into this book. This came completely from source. And so for 5 years, I recorded on my phone. And when my brain was well enough for me to type in year 6, I spent 2 years transcribing all of those recordings. And then I met my editor in Woodstock. I was moved to Woodstock, New York, and within 2 days of being there, I met the woman who edited the book with me. And then I put it out to market that was another 2 years. So this was an 8-year process of downloading the book on the phone and through Source, and then transcribing it and having it edited,
And then there were 2 years that I marketed it before Inner Traditions picked it up. And in those 2 years is when I started my work study group. But everything for me is directed. Like when the book wasn't selling, Source said, put it down, let us set the date for publication, and start sharing this with your students. So I created a work study group to share it. And I took 3 groups of people through that before the publisher came along. So everything is directed by Source. Where they tell me, and if people say, well, is that like, like, are you like, have you turned yourself over completely to Source? Absolutely, I have.
Yes.
And it's been the best turnover ever.
Right.
Because I get to execute how I want to do the direction that they give me. And if I'm off track, they redirect me. So it's not that I don't have any say in my life. I have lots of say. I co-create with Source.
That's what we are, co-create. It's like you're closer to God, Jehovah, nature. You have a direct line now that you don't have to more or less climb to get to God. Mm-hmm. You realize that we are of God. We are co-create.
We are all God. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that connection is very much, after I must have done, I was working with Hope for a good 15 or 17 years before my car event. So I had a really deep grounding in not just working with a teacher and reading material, but transforming and embodying
it
before this. Yeah, it's kind of curious because some people have said to me, either on interviews like this or just at book signings and events that I lead, you must have done something wrong for Spirit to take you out of your life and lose all your money and be so inconvenienced like that. And I always find that so curious because it's not that at all for me. If it was, and I felt that as my experience, I'd certainly agree. But what it seems to me was that a Spirit said in the car, this was their way of expediting my role as a teacher. So they come in and they sweep me out of my life and they download me with all this material, and my life on the planet is very challenging and difficult in the third dimensional world, but I'm being given this incredible gift of divine guidance to share with the world.
Yes.
I mean, come on, who's gonna complain about that?
That's right. And I like Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please, you go ahead.
No,
please.
I was just, when you use the word, isn't that curious? That's what you put in the book as an exercise for when things happen to you that could be negative or cause you to go to a low vibration. Mm-hmm. You change the vibration by just saying those simple little words. Isn't that curious? Or wouldn't that be nice if such and such would behave better than blah, blah, blah.
You have read a book, my dear,
I sure have. I told you. Well, I love it.
Well, it's all about changing our states. That's exactly it.
That's it.
Our work is in becoming more conscious as people in the third dimensional world.
Yes.
Is to observe who we are in any moment of time. Now, most of us are just walking through the world unconscious as we begin this work.
Yes.
Some of us may go to meditation or prayer, but it's not what we do when we take ourselves out of the world that really affects how we be in the world. It's us noticing in the moment of being in the dark, in fear, and choosing to stop in that moment,
and to change that vibration. Yes, to change it.
So it's 3 parts. It's having that consciousness to see how we are as we be. It's the choice to stop in the moment of all of this distraction, and then it's the opportunity to have tools that affect the change we seek. So as we move through the day, most people are just moving through unconsciously, and then they just feel in their emotions, whether they're feeling good or not, their thoughts are coming and going, and they're not taking a stock. So we learn in this book how to become aware, how to choose to take ourselves out, and then what to do when we do. What you just referenced, the phrases, wouldn't it be isn't that curious, and wouldn't it be nice?
Yes.
Shift our frequency, because when a disturbance happens, the disturbance of any kind, of any nature, is low frequency.
Amen.
So we talked about all those multi-dimensions of who we are. So when that egoic field is activated,
then we need to recognize that and shift it. And one of the easiest ways is with our language. Language is vibration. Spirit
Yes.
says before you had words, you had noise. You
Yes.
gurgled when you were happy. You cried
Sound.
when you needed
Sound.
attention or when you were in
Yes.
pain or wet. So vibration is within everybody, and it's
Amen.
within our language.
Yes.
So when we notice something has come in to disturb our peace, and we have that awareness, then we get to move ourselves to the higher octave. And one of the best and easiest ways and quickest ways, if something happens, whether somebody steps on your toe or hits your car or doesn't hold a door for you, or your teenager is acting out, or your partner is shut down and you need to talk, one of the best things to do is to say, oh, isn't that curious? Now, when
Curious.
you say it, you need to feel it in your body. Because if
Yes.
you say it unconsciously, it does nothing. But the physical body is our means of holding
Oh,
that spirit, that breath, right?
right.
And so the physical body is the host here. So when we say, isn't that curious? And we feel that, oh, isn't that curious? We're engaging the higher frequency. Because
Right.
isn't that curious
By
is an open
feeling,
state.
feelings help us change that vibration, the feeling part.
The
Yes.
physicality of the body, feeling that in the physicality
Yes.
as opposed to
Pose.
having an emotion, right? But feeling it in the body, exactly, is what grounds it, and it activates the intuitive body. So in the third dimensional world, we can't go upstairs and down, Queen. We can't be healthy and sick, and we can't be frequency and high. So
Right.
when we either stop and invoke the breath of life, or we stop and invoke, isn't that curious?
Curious.
We're taking ourselves from low frequency into high.
Hi.
And so
Yes.
in that high frequency state, you can create your next moment. This is why it's important. Our life is full of moments,
It's
and
full of
every moment
moments.
happens after the next. Source says every moment that you're in, the frequency of the moment you hold informs what the next
Moment
moment
will
is.
be.
So let's look at that. You're fine in your day, you're going along, and you're about to enter a building, and somebody's in front of you, and you just assume they're going to keep the door open, and they don't, and it slams in
Slams
your
in your
face.
face.
And most people go, what the F?
And their
Thanks
whole
so much for
frequency
that,
drops. Yeah, the whole
right? Your
frequency drops.
frequency
Yeah.
drops, exactly.
But
And if you don't correct it, your next moment
will be that
is
same
being
low
created.
frequency, right?
Exactly.
But
So,
the
no, but go
tools
ahead.
the tools that you are giving us is that we have a choice to stop that frequency where it is and low, and it's just like if you're going to change a channel on television. If you don't
Exactly.
like that story, you don't like cowboys and Indians, and you want to watch somebody fly off in space, you just flip the channel. Or
Yep.
you say, isn't that curious? And you go to a high vibration. And we're going to end this show on a high vibration. We have just a few minutes left. And I want to tell people where they can buy your book, Raise Your Frequency, Transform Your Life. How to Respond with Love to Life's Difficulties by Selina Maitreya, the most beautiful, wonderful person that I have met in the spiritual world. She's a spiritual leader that's informing this planet to light up, giving the tools so they can light up and shed their spirit of light everywhere they go. Everywhere they go. I want people to remember that slowing your breath down could make your day so much smoother. You'll have so much more flow in your life. And as I said before, those dreamers that want to get out of the rut or live a better life, you could manifest that by being positive, by loving yourself and loving everyone you come in contact with, regardless of if you don't like their behavior, if you don't like the color of their hair, if you don't like the race they happen to be, or the religion that they are involved in. You can love everyone. It is up to you. And I'd like to leave with Selina, leaving her words of wisdom to us.
Thank you, Queen. And I want to thank you for all the wonderful work you do for all of us. What I would share with everybody is we are on this planet at a very big inflection point, and each one of us has an opportunity and a choice as to how we choose to serve the planet. And one of the most immediate and consistent ways we can is to understand what frequency we're holding and to learn how to choose, to learn how to shift our frequency when we
Yes.
choose to, because our next moment is created from the moment before. And difficulty is going to happen in this world because that's part of the experience in our
Yes.
24/7 physical reality. But we have the choice to change our response to it. And as we
Yes.
change into higher frequency, we change the world.
Amen.
So I invite everybody here to do that, to participate and join all of us who are eager to become conscious and aware and choose to have our emotions be an alert system, our thoughts to be a process to work out the divine connection that we all have the opportunity to have as we move through our life.
Yes. Oh, what a wonderful time I've had with Selina.
Me
And
too,
I
you.
hope you will come back and talk and chat with me again, Selina. I've just gotten started with one that share your brain, your heart, your soul, and your spirit with all the people that listen to me. And whatever I learn from you, I take it and share it with, when I leave here today, when I go to the store, whatever, somebody's going to hear about their light shining, loving everyone that they come in contact with, and that they have a choice in if their day is going to be good or bad. And we're out of here. Bye, Selina.
Bye, Queen.
I love you, and I'll be talking
I-
with you.
I love you too, my dear. Thank you so much for all the work you do for all of us.
Oh,
It's a
thank you,
pleasure.
dear, for doing this podcast with me. God bless you, and stay safe and stay alert. And all
Fully
you listen-
received.
All right, I'm going to stay. Thank you for listening to Jazz and the Voice of Reason. Be sure to subscribe. And if you like the show, give a thumbs up. And we'll do better and better each time we record a podcast. Thank you.